Tragically, various bastardized forms of liberalism and Marxism have come to reign as the dominant political and sociocultural ideologies in the modernized Western world, and as such, terms like inclusivity are oft used in the sloganeering and virtue signaling of the bourgeois globalist hegemony. But such terms are not just cuddly buzzwords coined by this liberal Marxist bourgeoisie and parroted by their slaves and useful idiots. These terms represent ideologies which have become institutionalized, that is, they are ingrained into the very structures and policies of our social, cultural, economic, and political institutions. With its origins in academia, the institutionalized holy trinity of social justice, diversity, inclusivity, and equity has spread like a malignant tumor into government and various sectors of the business and sociocultural world. Inclusivity is defined as the practice or policy of including people who might otherwise be excluded or marginalized. However, this seemingly altruistic and equitable doctrine is simply a veneer which meagerly conceals a very sinister agenda. The principal goal of all sociocultural Marxist doctrines, including inclusivity, is to normalize societal double standards against certain demographic groups deemed to be dominant and therefore oppressive and evil. By using methods of psychological terrorism to gain compliance, sociocultural Marxists have effectively standardized, institutionalized, and are now regulating the doctrine of inclusivity, which implies that it is malevolent and discriminatory for demographics deemed dominant and therefore evil and oppressive to have anything within society that is exclusive to them. Thereafter, the ability of that demographic, whether perceived or otherwise, to collectivize in any way, shape, or form within society is effectively undermined. The targeted demographic and the individuals who belong to it are thenceforth dispossessed of their self-determination, their collective identity, and their power as a group, all for the alleged sake of including and therefore empowering those outside the targeted demographic. However, as you have surely noticed, there is no institutionalized social justice outside of the Eurosphere. There are no departments of diversity, inclusivity, and equity in Indian universities or Japanese government agencies. It is, ironically and diabolically, exclusive to European majority nations. One could say the reason for this is because non-Europeans have not succumbed to the toxic and destructively atomizing effects of liberalism and sociocultural Marxism, but the more accurate cause is that sociocultural Marxists have exclusively targeted European majority nations throughout the world, advancing a malevolent agenda which seeks to engender what I call the 4Ds: displacement, disintegration, dispossession, and destruction of anything and everything European from the world. Inclusivity as it manifests itself in the Western world is not implemented exclusively in a racial context, but all forms it takes create the same eventual effect, the 4Ds for Europeans. Think of what has happened since females as well as various religious and sexual minorities have been artificially elevated into positions of power in our societies. Think of the genocidal consequences this has brought to the European race. So comprehensively has the doctrine of inclusivity permeated our societies that anything, quote-unquote, too white is characterized as de facto exclusive to whites, and therefore treated with disdain, even if the reason for a lack of diversity, or non-whites, is completely due to meritocracy or freedom of individual choice. Something quote-unquote too white is considered backwards, primitive, and ugly. From the most macrocosmic to the most microcosmic of human organizational units, any civilization, nation, state, county, parish, city, town, village, neighborhood, family, couple, all the way down to the very individual themselves, anything too white, too male, too straight, or too Christian must be diversified for the sake of inclusivity and equity. Any institution or organization in European majority societies, whether governments, armed forces, corporations, non-profits, religions, cooperatives, educational institutions, too many Europeans, too many males, too many heterosexuals, that's all evil according to inclusivity. Anywhere humans group together for any reason, whether it be universities, clubs, sporting events, bars, concerts, markets, gyms, events. If there's not enough diversity, it's because it's not adequately inclusive and equitable. The exclusive identities of various European ethnic groups, which carry with them a genetic and ancestral criteria, are enduring subversive and identicidal attempts by Marxian globalists to bastardize them into meaningless multi-ethnic civic identities, all for the sake of inclusivity. Even the very history of Europeans cannot be exclusive to Europeans, and therefore must be multiracialized according to inclusivity. Inclusivity means nothing can ever be exclusive to certain groups, even if such exclusivity arises in a completely organic and unintentional fashion. Thus, of course, anything intentionally exclusive to whites or males or Christians or heterosexuals is deemed outright evil and in need of immediate and comprehensive destruction. But if this were not proof enough that the goal of inclusivity is to destroy Europeans, here comes the real kicker. Just as institutionalized social justice conveniently fails to target non-European nations, so too does it conveniently fail to apply its standards to non-Europeans themselves, including those living within European majority nations. Non-European exclusivity is not only encouraged within European majority nations, and indeed the world as a whole, it is institutionalized. No issue is taken with any human organizational unit, whether it be a nation, a state, a city, a neighborhood, a family, or an individual being quote-unquote too black. No government, armed force, corporation, or educational institution could ever be too black according to the sociocultural Marxist hegemony. No sports team, no club, no film cast, no audience, no market, no pub, no holiday party. Nothing can ever be too black. So therein lies the dark secret about inclusivity. It is not the practice or policy of including people who might otherwise be excluded or marginalized. It is the practice or policy of demographic double standards, which serves to expedite the objective of sociocultural Marxism, the displacement, disintegration, dispossession, and destruction of Europeans.